and to connect that with SMEs, because they have those capabilities in terms of availability of data. And fintech is an emergent area where a lot of innovation is happening. And because we have a societal impact dimension hardwired into our company, so we were looking at how this might make a difference to small and medium enterprises. So we brought in these teams of students. We trained them rapidly on something called the actionable futures process, which we have designed, which is how do you systematically think about the future and then focus on this problem and then offer recommendations to Dun and Bradstreet. So our feedback from Dun and Bradstreet is that they were surprised that when they were doing a similar exercise within the company, and there were people who understand that company inside out, they have been spent years in that company. If they came up with 100 suggestions, this team of students were able to reach a level of 70 without any exposure to the company and come up with some excellent ideas. So Dun and Bradstreet thought that yes, these people are able to bring innovation, are able to bring cutting edge thinking, and come up with new ideas, which were difficult even for the those people who were very much part of the company. So that is a proof that this is something which is important. Also, if you look at the US itself, if you look at computer science graduates, only 6% are able to get internships. So obviously, there's a need for a different model where internships have to be scaled up. And that is possible only if you do internships on a virtual sort of approach using remote internships. And if you are able to do this in a way that brings international teams to work together, because then you are not only focusing on a problem which you're trying to solve in a real world context, you are developing skills in students for doing that. But when they work across geographical boundaries with different teams, you're also promoting social and emotional learning, soft skills, communication. How do you have more cultural sensitivity? How do you work in terms of teams? How do you communicate with them? How do you adapt to time zone differences? How do you negotiate what their ideas are and your ideas are and come to a consensus? All these are very valuable skills, which is what we are focusing on. Yeah, so we typically work with of course organizations, because that's the starting point. The starting point is a problem that you're trying to solve. And then we work with students from different universities. So we worked with students from Ivy League, for example, Princeton, from Berkeley, from University of Michigan. We worked with Boston University students. We have worked with students from a university called Lund in Sweden. We worked with the students from Tilburg University in the Netherlands, ESCP, which is a business school in Paris. We worked with Durham in UK and with the University of Queensland in Australia. And as part of our own development of solutions, we have worked with students from the IIIT Hyderabad. So they have also worked with us, and they developed 2 MVPs for us, which itself is a test case of what value these students can bring to companies and to startups. No, absolutely. In fact, our societal impact dimension of our work would necessitate that we work with the students in developing countries. We work with tier 2, tier 3 type of institutions. But just to validate our thinking, we thought it would be good to start with this Ivy League and see, what is the value that these students can bring. And then we could be able to integrate students, say, from tier 2 or tier 3 institutions from developing countries to work with some of these Ivy League students as well. And we may realize that actually, there is a lot of innovation which those students from tier 2, tier 3 in developing countries can bring. So this is just a phase in our development, but our ultimate objective is to work with students across the world. It is absolutely necessary because there is no option there. So for example, just look at generative AI. So much has changed because of generative AI, and it has started impacting virtually every function. So unless you keep pace with that, you will not be able to compete. in many ways, survival itself will be difficult because the costing is so different. Now, just imagine because of generative AI, there is this, Sri Lankan billionaire in the US, or rather in Canada, who's Chamath Palapithiya. He is a billionaire, but he has started an incubator which is called 8090, which means any established SaaS software, for example, they can come up to 80% of its functionality at a cost which is 90% less. So you look at the metrics that it takes years and it takes millions of investments to come with, say, a system like SAP or a system like Salesforce. If you can do 80% of that at a cost which is 90% lower, because of what artificial intelligence and generative AI is able to bring, it will be highly disruptive to markets. We have a company in Hyderabad itself, for example, Brain Enterprises, which is getting into low code, no code type of development of solutions, and they are also able to compress the time significantly. In fact, I was talking to their one of their mentors, and he was saying that they don't have a CFO, a human CFO. It's a digital CFO. Even the CEO's function is largely done by a digital CEO. So just imagine, you can see these as weak signals. This is the starting point of what, if amplified, would be highly disruptive to companies and organizations. So there is definitely, you can see that this skilling and reskilling will become a necessity for everybody just to survive. Exactly. So you have to constantly track what is changing. You have to understand where that change is heading, and you have to extrapolate what might be the future if that change gets amplified, right? So it's a leap of imagination as well, which is, in other words, called as scenario planning. You create the scenarios that, look, if this continues on this path, or if the path shifts in a particular direction, what might that scenario look like in the future? And then you backcast from preferable scenarios and see what you need to do today. But you're absolutely right. This idea about having a degree and that just being your sort of claim to fame for the rest of your life is gone. You have to be constantly on the learning curve, constantly. So the ability to learn and unlearn becomes a critical capability which needs to be acquired and systematically practiced through your life journey. That's a big change. Yeah, so I think the educational institutions will also have to shift and adapt. So I'll give you an example. The University of South Florida is, I think they recently hired 116 people who are expert in artificial intelligence, and they're embedding AI faculty in every single department. So AI across the curriculum, is what they are trying to do. So they're adapting. They realize that AI is going to make a profound shift in education. That's one thing. You also find that technology itself might solve a problem of learning faster. Because if you look at immersive technologies, it has been established that people can learn much faster as compared to classroom-based approaches. So if I give you the example of Walmart, it was running a program using virtual reality where it could train its workers in 15 minutes what it would take workers 8 hours to be trained on. So you see the difference in terms of accelerated learning. Similarly, I think it was Verizon, which was training call center staff to handle irate customers. And that using immersive learning could be done much, much faster as compared to normal learning. So just, I will give you a personal example. I visited one of the centers of excellence in Singapore, and they gave me augmented vision glasses, and they say, can you repair this oil rig? I have not had any experience of oil rigs. That's the first time in my life that I'm seeing oil rig, sitting there on the floor. But with the help of glasses, it tells you what part I need to look at, what tool I need to use, in what direction I need to use that tool, and how I need to replace that particular part. Now, all that I could do without any guidance except the augmented glasses that I had. And so just imagine that there may be somebody who's a cab driver, and tomorrow you have autonomous cars, and you need to retrain that cab driver in some other area. Maybe he has to go and inspect a substation, electric substation. So some basic training, of course. I'm not saying that training is completely gone, but with these type of new technologies, and with Apple coming out with Vision Pro, which is just the starting point. You know what the iPhone was in 2007 and what it is today is the capability is very different. So just imagine where these technologies will go and how they will get democratized and the price will come down with the competition. So the learning process itself can be accelerated, and educational institutions as they are currently organized will have to adapt, otherwise they will become irrelevant. Yes, so the German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, they launched a global challenge called Innovate 2030. And it was a challenge, the focus was on digital for climate change. So it was in the context of climate change. And one of the challenges was to provide some ideas for the city of Porto Viejo in Ecuador as to how they could introduce smart tourism and sustainability in the city. So we proposed some solutions which looked at digital technologies, especially using technologies which are immersive technologies, using the metaverse, as a framing concept, using approaches where high value tourism could come physically to Porto Viejo, but a lot of revenues and a lot of visibility could be generated using smart technologies, especially by creating galleries of climate art, by promoting other assets which are sustainability oriented in the metaverse. So that set of solutions, it won us the global award from Innovate 2030. Yes, so I'm happy that you are in this space and you are using emerging technologies to do this. So just imagine if one had to establish